Sawasdee krub, distinguished guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome back to the afternoon session of ASEAN Innovation Roadmap and Bioeconomy Forum in conjunction with GBS 2020. And it's my pleasure that I am Atit Megagat, being your host, introducing and welcoming you to this afternoon session, and especially that we are very honored and it's very special to have His Excellency, the Ambassador of Germany to Thailand, with us this afternoon as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like I've mentioned, that is very honored that we will have a special address by the Ambassador of Germany to Thailand of the German policy strategy on bioeconomy. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to give a big round of applause to welcome His Excellency H.E.Georg Schmidt. So please welcome to the stage.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Good afternoon, Sawasdee krub here in Thailand, and all the ones who are visiting and who are joining from far away. This feels different to have a half-empty room, but this is the new normal, the Pokati Mai. I'm very glad that I'm invited to talk a little bit about the German experience, because bioeconomy is, for many outsiders, is a new term, but for all of you, it's nothing new. So we can jump right into it with the German bioeconomy strategy. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the strategy, outline some of the key points, put it in a regional context with the EU and ASEAN, and also in a global context, if you bear with me. What is the genesis of our German bioeconomy strategy? We decided this year on an updated national bioeconomy strategy. And this is a long history because we've been dealing with this issue for about 10 years now. And one of the key findings for all the 10 years, and it goes like a red thread through it, is like, we must learn much more from nature. We must learn much more from nature. So that means we have to know the cycles of natural resources. We don't just use them for the energy industry, for food, paper, textile, or chemical pharmaceuticals, but we must know the cycles and see how we tap into them and how we use them in terms of preservation, environmental protection, resource conservation. So that means first knowing it is we have to increase our knowledge a lot. In 2009, we set up the German Bioeconomy Council, BC, and this is an independent advisory body. I think that's very important. Most of the members of this, they are scientists, and they cover a wide range of topics related to the bioeconomy. And it's them who identify fields of action for politics. It's them who search ways for sustainable solutions. And it's them who place it in a global context. And I think that's very important for any kind of policy. It's a scientific base for something which is then a political decision. But to have a scientific base sort of depoliticizes some of the facts. If you don't have a common knowledge, and if you don't trust the scientist with giving you the guidelines, politicians cannot make very good decisions. We were one of the first countries who came up with a strategy. We decided in 2010 to give a national research strategy until 2030. We put a lot of money into the research, 1 billion euros, more than 2,000 different projects. And in 2013, we came up with a national bioeconomy strategy. And since then, we have gone forward a lot. And the two ministries in Germany who drive this process are one's the Ministry of Science and Research Education and the Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture. What are the key elements of our strategy? It sets out the political frame. It wants to bring together all the knowledge that we have, and it wants to set out guidelines, but also political goals. And if I look at the goals, they define like three they define 6 strategic goals in implementing targets. The first goal is to focus on finding bioeconomy solutions to take sustainability strategy forward. So it means to incorporate bioeconomy in the whole SDG debate. I will come back to that later. The second goal requests us to identify and develop the potential of the bioeconomy within ecological limits. So this implies that we actually understand the ecological systems and we know how it works, and we're able to identify precisely the interactions and that we can monitor. If we do this, this is the effect of it. And this is, of course, not linked to Germany, but this goes transboundary. The third goal is to learn more and better from nature. I began my speech with that, and that permeates through the whole strategy, is to not think that we can master it, but we are more like students and observers of nature. So if we take our biological knowledge, for example, for agriculture, but also for bio-based production systems, as well as in digitalization and artificial intelligence. Goal number 4 is to achieve a sustainable resource base, through the example when we want to preserve soil fertility of agricultural land, to develop new value chains for natural resources and side products. Goal number 5 is then to say, how does this fit in a global context? And we want to have the ambition that Germany is one of the leading countries in bioeconomy. We want to accelerate market introduction of these products, and we want to establish these new value chains, supporting startups, small, medium-sized enterprises, and to support clusters and model regions so that people can actually see what we're doing. Goal number 6 focuses on the support by the civil society. And I think that's also very important because you cannot do that top-down. It has to be a bottom-up approach. So the stakeholders must discuss and must say, like, this is where we want to go. This is what the dialogue is about in research for it. And the same, I think, applies also for international cooperation. Let me talk a little bit about the importance of bioeconomy for rural development. We feel that the rural population will particularly benefit from a political decision to shift the economy to a green economy and to go for a bioeconomy. And this is very important if there's more value added in the countryside, because for a long time we had a growth pattern where the most growth came from industry and services. So basically it looks like going back to the beginning to pre-industrialization, but redefining it and redefining the whole value also of rural areas, which I feel is a fundamental shift also for us. Rural areas are dominated by agricultural activities, but they're also suppliers of biomass, they're suppliers of natural resources, of biodiversity. And a demand for natural resources and biomass, this will create a lot of jobs in the agricultural sector. And it stops a worrying trend of depopulation. If you look, so many countries, they have the problem that all the young people move into the cities and you end up with empty countrysides. This is happening 1 hour outside of Berlin. People move into the city and it's not good for the balancing. And so it offers just a much more balanced way of economic development in addition to the other benefits that we talked about. And it requires new skills also. If you look at the skill level, these are highly technical, highly skilled levels, and we need knowledge and skills. That means we need new schools, we need new institutions, and it offers a potential for high tech in the countryside. And to me, this comes together with a reappraisal also how we look at the countryside. In how many languages do we look down and we say, those peasants? No. High-tech in the countryside will lead us all to reappreciate the value of what's happening outside of our cities. By the way, I think it will also lead us to reevaluating the importance of biodiversity inside the cities. In some big German cities, people found out that we have actually higher levels of biodiversity because you don't have monocultures in big cities. So it's not just the countryside, but it's a reappraisal of what it means and how fundamental biodiversity is to our well-being. So it can contribute to decentralization of economic growth, which is a healthier growth. We stand on more legs. We don't put all the eggs in one basket. And I think this is a debate, if I look at Thailand now, forgive me for saying that, but I'm speaking from a perspective in Bangkok, seeing at the situation with COVID-19 and thinking about policy making, where does Thailand want to go in the next 5 to 10 years? I think reappraising the importance of the countryside and of the agricultural sector is definitely a question worth addressing. And I know many people are thinking about that and have good ideas about it. Let me put this a little bit in context with the EU, because Germany is not alone in Europe, and we have a strong commitment to multilateralism, and also agricultural policy is, of course, one of the areas where we have agreed to transfer competencies to the EU. So without actually a European perspective and without a strong European angle, there's only this much we can achieve on our own. So the first EU strategy on bioeconomy was released in 2012 and updated in 2018. And again, this strategy is similar. It proposes actions to support rural and coastal development, also in extremely remote areas. It ensures like a more proportionate sharing of the benefits of competitive and sustainable bioeconomy across the whole European territory and value chains, which is very important because we also have very imbalanced growth in Europe. If you look at the per capita incomes, if you look at the structures as a whole continent, we have very different economic levels of development. And we also want to ensure that bioeconomy fits in a wider context. So again, it's very similar, the strategy that it says we must value natural resources, we must diminish environmental pressures, increase the use of sustainable renewable products, and restore and enhance ecosystems, functions, and biodiversity. We are very interested as a member state to promote that and to foster these talks within Brussels in the institutions. We talk about subsidies and all this, and it's not easy to change policy very quickly, and it's long established. But unless we bring our thoughts and our experiences into the European context, once again, there's only this much we can do. And it's important for the EU. I mean, there's a turnover value of 2.3 trillion, and there's an accounting of 8.2% of the EU's workforce in the sector. So the bioeconomy could become a very central element to the functioning of the EU economy. And this is a static view at it now. Look at the potential of added value in the future, and the agricultural share would actually, or could actually look different. This is the bioeconomy on the global, on the European scale. If I go one more level up, then we are looking at the global scales. And of course here, fortunately, as a global community, we have the SDGs as a framework. I'm not just carrying them today on my jacket, but all the time, and many people ask about them. And they are, I think, very important because different from the predecessor, it's sustainable development goals that are for all the countries, not just for the developing countries. And just one quick glance shows you that bioeconomy is related to many of the SDGs. SDG number 1, no poverty. SDG number 2, zero hunger. Number 3, good health and well-being. Number 6, clean water and sanitation. Number 7, affordable and clean energy. Number 8, decent work and economic growth. Number 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure. Number 12, responsible consumption and communication. Number 13, climate action. Number 14, life below water. And number 15, life on land. I could have said all 17, but like this, it's a nice reminder of what they cover. So, but there are challenges how we really quantify it and how we put the bioeconomy with the SDGs. And first of all, it really depends on how we implement our strategies. And if it's a very complicated system, so if we tweak something in one area, it will affect all the others. So we can do good, but we have to be very careful. And secondly, we do not really have a globally accepted definition of bioeconomy. So it's very difficult for policymakers also to come up and quantify and say, this is within the framework of bioeconomy, and this is why we have achieved this consequence. So I think meetings like this are very important because they form, they offer a very important platform for exchanges also in the region. What is bioeconomy all about? And they link people who think about similar problems in different contexts, and you will probably realize that it's very similar. The problems are similar, but probably many of your solutions are also similar. And I think the more countries adopt national strategies, the clearer this picture will come in the future. So probably in a few years' time, we will have a much better idea of the importance of bioeconomy. How does this fit into our work with Thailand? And here I again asked for your understanding. I'm the German ambassador to Thailand, so all of you who are not in Thailand, but I think it might be helpful also to think of examples what we're doing. I just give two examples of our international cooperation with Thailand. Now, the first one involves the Leibniz Institute for Interactive Materials and their partner, the Thai National Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. So the basic idea here is to replace a synthetic insecticide by developing a new biodegradable product. And to achieve that, that would improve the effectiveness of this product's application, because the synthetic product, in case of rain, is being washed away. And the new product will better stick to the plant. It will avoid the risk of groundwater pollution, and there are no losses in the application, so we will also need much less of it. So these are like very detailed but very concrete examples of what can be done. A second one is the cooperation with the research center in Jülich and the National Science and Technology Agency, our hosts here. And this is to develop a cassava variety with increased yields and better qualities by applying modern technology. And again, this has a lot of potential also for other agricultural applications. And this was one of my first visits as ambassador here, to go out. And it's impressive. You drive into the countryside, and if somebody explains to you, is what I said before, it's high-tech in the middle of, I was tempted to say in the middle of nowhere, but no, it's not nowhere. It's high-tech in the middle of somewhere. And you look at the cassava plants, and suddenly you see that, oh, they're sending the data to a satellite, and it's linked up to Jülich. So if you open your eyes, you will just be much more respectful, which I think is anyway helpful. If you walk around nature and somebody helps you to open the eyes, you will be much more respectful anyway. How does this fit into our work with ASEAN in a general way? Well, Germany is a strong believer in multilateralism. We think we need a rules-based international order because no country can actually deal with the international challenges on their own. Pollution, climate change, all these things, they don't stop at national borders. And the SARS-CoV-2 virus has shown, or is showing us in a very clear way, that the virus also doesn't care about national borders. Yeah, it comes from one country and it jumps to another and the next and the next. The virus doesn't discriminate. I think sometimes we humans discriminate more than the virus does. So Germany has a very strong cooperation with ASEAN. We see that ASEAN is an important partner, an important regional structure in the region. We are already within the EU by far the largest bilateral donor, 97 million euros in the last period, and the 5th largest worldwide. And we hope to upgrade our partnership. At the moment, we are a development partner of ASEAN, but we hope to become a dialogue partner, to extend it into other areas. And again, sometimes people think, oh, it's development, but development encompasses everything. The way we structure the running of our economy affects, for instance, climate and other things. And climate change is a national security risk. If we don't deal with it now, there are going to be very difficult questions. I just read the report from our colleagues in Vietnam that they have been again hit by this very strong storm, and we see this. But it's one thing to see it on your television screen. It's another thing to actually experience. And we live in a country here that is very prone to seasonal rainfall patterns, and if they change, there's a big problem for Thailand as well. And these, to me, are the real national security challenges, and they need to be addressed by our brains, not by tanks and guns. if I look at climate change also, maybe some of you have noticed that the German government has issued new guidelines for a partnership with the Indo-Pacific region. And climate, sustainability, biodiversity, increased cooperation in science and technology play a very important part in those guidelines. We feel that this region, the whole Indo-Pacific region, is so crucial not only to our well-being, but also to global well-being, that it was important for us to actually reformulate what do we stand for and what would we like to offer. And we're in the process of like sending this out as a signal and waiting what comes from the region. And we would want to really engage in a much stronger and structured way in the debates. That, for instance, covers loss of biodiversity. We have the next conference of the parties of the Convention of Biodiversity in China in 2021. So I hope, again, there will be a strong commitment also to work together on this. We need to balance the different needs. Germany contributes a lot to the Green Climate Fund, others. We want to offer energy partnerships because the way we generate energy directly affects also other issues. So I could talk for this for a long time, but I'm veering off the topic of bioeconomy. It's one important aspect of it, and we're very happy to share our experiences. I'm glad that I was invited today. I feel privileged because Germany is going in one way. We have a lot of knowledge, but we always profit also from these interactions, from these exchanges with our partners and friends in the region, and particularly in ASEAN, particularly in Thailand. So I would like to thank you very much for inviting me today. Thank you for your attention here in the room, but also on the screens. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณมากครับ
Well, thank you very much, His Excellency Georg. So kindly remain on the stage as I invite our distinguished guests and participants to join the photo session on the stage, please. Very fruitful, very insightful address indeed, as we all know that Germany is the leading country for bioeconomy in the international level. Well, thank you very much once again. So right now I'd like to invite our distinguished guests to join the photo session on stage. First up, may I invite Dr. Bernd Christiansen. Please welcome to the stage. And also I'd like to invite Professor Dr. ประสิทธิ์ผลผลิตการพิมพ์ as well as Professor Dr. มรกตตันติเจริญ please. And of course, Dr. อาภารัตน์มหาขันธ์ please welcome to the stage. And also may I invite Dr. วรรณพวิเศษสงวน Dr. Lily เอื้อวิไลจิต and last but not least คุณสายันตันพานิชครับขอเรียนเชิญครับ All right, for our photographers to capture this moment, and of course collaboration of Germany to Thailand and to ASEAN member states, we perhaps can say สวัสดี with big smiles on your face. As a count of three, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, 1, 2, 3. สวัสดี Well, thank you very much for doing the honor, as that we're in the land of smiles. So we make sure that you have big smiles on your faces.